Bhagavad Gita, Gita Mahatmya, Chapter 11. Lord Shiva said, My dear Parvati, now I will relate to you the glories of the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It is not possible to tell its full glories, as there are thousands of stories. I will relate one of them only. On the banks of the Pranita river is a large town of the name Meghankar, in which is the famous temple of Jagdishwar. Jagdishwar is holding in his hand a bow. In that town of Meghankar, there was a pure Brahman of the name Sunand, who remained a brahmachari his whole life. Sunand would sit in front of Lord Jagdishwar and recite the 11th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita and remember the universal form of the Lord. By reciting that 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, he gained complete control over his senses and was able to remember Lord Jagdishwar continuously. Once, that pure Brahman Sunand went on a tour of the holy places on the banks of the Godavari river. He visited all the sacred places, starting with Vraj Tirth. In all the holy places he visited, he bathed and took darshan of the presiding deity. One day, he reached the town of Vivaha Mandap. Along with his associates, he searched for a place to stay, and eventually, in the middle of that town, they found a dharamshala, where they all took rest for the night. When Sunand woke up in the morning, he found that all his associates had left. While searching for them, he met the headman of the town, who immediately fell at his feet and said, "O great sage, I cannot say where your associates have gone, but I can tell you that there is no devotee equal to you. I have never seen anyone as pure as you. O my dear Brahman, I am begging you to stay in this town." When Sunand heard the humble request of the headman of the town, he decided to stay for some days. That headman made every arrangement for the comfortable stay of Sunand and engaged in his service day and night. After 8 days had passed, one villager came before Sunand, crying very loudly, and said, "O pure Brahman, last night one Rakshas ate my son." Sunand inquired, "Where does that Rakshas stay? And how did he eat your son?" The villager replied, "In this town, one very frightful Rakshas lives, who every day was eating villagers as and when he pleased. One day, we all went to that Rakshas and requested him to protect us, in return for which we would provide him with his daily food. One dharamshala was built, and any travelers who came here were sent there to stay, and while they were sleeping, the Rakshas would eat them. In this way, we have been able to protect ourselves from this Rakshas. You, along with your associates, stayed at that dharamshala, but that Rakshas did not eat you along with everyone else. The reason I will tell you. Last night, a friend of my son came, but I did not realize that he was a very close and dear friend of my son. So I sent him to stay in dharamshala. Later, when my son found out, he went after him to try and bring him back from the dharamshala. But when he went there, he was also eaten by that Rakshas. Today in the morning, I went to that Rakshas and asked him why he had eaten my son along with the other travelers. I also requested him if there was any way I could get back my son. That Rakshas told me, "I did not know that your son had also entered the dharamshala. Thus, he was eaten with everyone else. As far as getting him back, that will be possible when I am freed from this Rakshas body, which will be possible by the mercy of a person who recites the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita daily. Right now, there is one Brahman staying in this town who had stayed at this Dharamshala, but I had not eaten him because he daily recites the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. If he daily recites the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita 7 times, then sprinkles water on me, then I will be able to get free from the curse of this Rakshas body. Sunand inquired from that villager, "What sin did this person perform to attain a Rakshas body?" The villager replied, "Long ago, there had been a farmer living in this town. One day, he was guarding the fields when, just a little distance away from him, one large vulture attacked a person who was traveling on the road. At that time, one yogi was passing by, and when he saw that person being attacked by that vulture, he came running to his aid. But when he reached him, it was too late. Then that yogi became very angry with the farmer and spoke to him as follows: "One who sees others in danger from thieves, snakes, fire, attacked by weapons, etc., and even though he is capable of helping them, but does not come to help, is punished by Yamraj. After suffering in hell for a very long time, he takes birth as a wolf. And one who helps someone in need of help certainly pleases Lord Vishnu. One who attempts to save a cow from the hands of a ferocious animal, a low-class man, or a wicked ruler attains Lord Vishnu. Wicked farmer, you saw that vulture attacking that person, but still you made no attempt to save him? Now I curse you to take birth as a Rakshas." The farmer said, "I was watching the fields for the whole night, and I am very tired. So kindly be merciful to me, O gentle sage." The yogi replied, "When someone who is daily reciting the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita sprinkles water on your head, then you will become free from this curse." The villager said, "My dear Sunand, with your hand, kindly sprinkle water on the head of this Rakshas." After hearing that history from the villager, Sunand went along with him to the place where that Rakshas was staying, and while he was reciting the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, sprinkled water on his head. That Rakshas immediately attained a four-armed form like that of Lord Vishnu. Not only he, but all the thousands of persons he had eaten also attained a four-armed form like that of Lord Vishnu. Then they all sat down in the flower aeroplane, which had been sent to take them all to Vaikunth. Seeing those amazing events, the villager inquired from the Rakshas, which one was his son. The Rakshas started to laugh and pointed at one of those thousands of beautiful persons sitting in the transcendental airplane and replied, "That is your son." The villager requested his son to come home with him. Hearing his father's request, the son smilingly replied, "My dear sir, many times you have been my son and I yours, but now, by the grace of this great pure devotee Sunand, I have been released from this wheel of birth and death, and now I am going to my real home, Vaikunth. Dear sir, kindly surrender unto the lotus feet of Sunand and hear from him the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and you also will be able to attain the abode of Lord Vishnu, Vaikunt. Of this, there is no doubt. From Lord Krishna's mouth, these nectarine instructions came on the battlefield of Kurukshetra in reply to the questions of his friend Arjun. And only by hearing and reciting this discourse can one break the tight knot which is binding us to this wheel of birth and death. Lord Shiva said, after speaking those words full of wisdom to his father, along with all those other fortunate souls, he went to Vaikunt, and his father learned the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita from Sunand, and very soon they also went to Vaikunt. My dear Parvati, you have heard the glories of the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which is capable of destroying all sinful reactions.